first of all, I'm come from Spain. Yeah.
Okay.
As you, I was born in one country in Spain, and I grew up in France. Okay. And I've been living in Peru for 30 years. Yeah. And well, I came to these fields just at random. I was just traveling through South America, and I came into this area to visit some friends, and they told me about these kind of plants and medicine, but I was very reluctant because I was against any kind of psychotrops or substances. You know, I was totally virgin in these fields, and I was very fearful about that. And you know, all these ideas that people keep in their collective mind, that it's devil, it's not clear, you know. Anyway, so I just experiment because there was nothing to do here. At that moment, Tarapoto was a very little village, and anyway, so I did a couple of experiences with no specific sensations or experience at all. No visionary experience. I was just feel very calm, and I appreciate a lot the setting. You know, it was in the middle of the jungle with local people, and very peaceful. And I was surprised because at the end of the experience, the ceremonies, people we share, and I was amazed to listen to people talking about these wonderful words, snakes, spirits of plants. So I was really curious about that and wondering why them and not me. And so I keep on doing this experience, and I did 3 more experiences with high doses. Even I went sometimes for 3 times because I didn't get any kind of sensations, just blank out, very peaceful, very alert, and but nothing to say beyond that, you know. And after maybe five experience, no specific content, and I start thinking really that these guys they had a problem, you know, a big problem. Because I couldn't imagine that taking so high doses and not getting any kind of effect. Yeah. So the guy, the curandero, it was a guy, a mestizo from Pucallpa. He was traveling in this area, so he told me, "Oh, you know, you're an Occident. Westerners are people very strong. Their mind are very closed." Say, yes, maybe you are right, but I do my best, you know. I try, and I would like to experiment. And so he proposed me to do another Aya experience, but I took just a little bit because I couldn't bear the taste. It was very, very bitter, and I was not used to this kind of beverage, you know. It was really I was reluctant physically to take it, you know. And so, well, I took just maybe a spoon. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Comparing to my previous doses were more or less 70 milliliters, you know, each one. Three times during the ceremony was a huge amount for me. And so I want just to sit down and peaceful, and suddenly after 5 minutes, boom, it works. I mean, it's just, it's like I was like in a movie, okay? and I hear a voice tell me now, okay, be comfortable, it's going to start. So what? And I saw all my life, since my birth, growing up in a specific, in Spain, you know, in little village, family, relatives, all the stuff, it was very real. And at the same time, my eye was open. I could watch other people around me, hear the curandero with his Icaros, all the stuff. And the movie was inside of my head, you know, of my mind. And I was amazed, just amazed, and wondering how it's possible. How can watch that at that my life in a very realistic way, much more alive than I was in my in my body, and simultaneously be able to be alert to what's going around me, you know, without losing contact with the present moment. And maybe it lasts maybe 10 minutes. Was really amazing experience, and it stopped. And I asked myself, well, very nice, interesting stuff, but what does it mean? What does it mean? No. And again, I hear the voice tell me again, look at it again. And so again, the screen and the movie, but this time it was not in a chronological way. It's not in a linear way. I mean, all the sequences of my life were alternated, you know. They are at random. It's like another way to look at that. The same content, but not in a chronological way at all. And really, he was so speed, but very clearly, you know. And suddenly, I got like a full sensation that I understood. Beyond the content of my personal story, I understood that all of this is totally coherent. It has a sense. I mean, it's alive. It's not just sequences one after another, as many people or ourselves, we live our life without meaning, just going through life without meaning. Okay, you just experiment, but there is no meaning, specific meaning, or just a superficial meaning that give you a sensation of lacking something fundamental, no? And there, during the experience, was the opposite. The content doesn't matter. It was in the way that I envisioned that content that makes sense. Each sequence was connected to another one. It was not a random at all. There was a sense, a direction. Right. And so, right at one point, all the sequences disappeared, and I experiment like a big explosion. Big explosion, everything disappeared. I was out of this world. My gross sense stopped functioning. But I was alive as never has been before. My sensation to be existing was so strong, but I couldn't refer to any kind of specific body or Dionisio. No, it just be. And at that moment, I envision again a screen appear and envision billions of human beings. Billions of human beings in I would say in an etheric body, in an energetic body. Okay? There is no specific detail, just a sensation, a vibration of each body, you know, each being. But it was like my understanding my conviction at that moment was just all humanity was there. and again, I hear a voice telling me, look at the center of the chest. And there was a ball, a little ball, in the middle of the chest. And each human being possessed this ball. And this voice was talking to me in a very clear and peaceful way. I hear from this voice telling me, look at this ball because it's very precious. That's why a human being is so precious, and that's why he's eternal. Wow. When I hear this name of eternal, eternity, there was another second explosion, big one, on top of my head. I would say on top of my head, but I couldn't see my head. In fact, it looks like in this experience, in this energetic body, it was on top of my head. Big explosion, and everything disappeared. No more human beings, no more object, no more subject, just pure awareness. Pure awareness with the sensation of clarity, infinitude, and bliss, with no end and no beginning. It was just an experience. I couldn't say anything about that, except it was spaceless and timeless. It's just nothing to say, just pure bliss with, I would say, vacuity. It's full of that and empty simultaneously, all the paradox were included and transcended simultaneously, Yeah. And just the most important feeling, sensation was just be alive. It's like a second birth, but not a birth of Dionisio, no, just being, just being. And maybe, I don't know how much time it lasts, maybe a few seconds or a few minutes, I don't remember, I don't know, it doesn't take, but my sensation was a taste of eternity. And so, after a while, again, I hear the voice tell me, you have to come down, come back, come down. And first time in my life, I decide, no, I don't want to come back. It's be ignorant to come back, to be incarnated again, and let go this pure bliss and But anyway, I come back and I feel, like a shock in my body, and again, all my gross sense start functioning. And I could see everyone, I listened the Iquitos, everything was normal, tranquil. But I couldn't see my body. I was able to see the chair where I was sitting, but I couldn't see the flesh of my body.
Wow.
And so I became scared, very scared. So I tried to ask for help to the ayahuasquero, the curandero, and he couldn't hear me. So I yelled, I couldn't move. So all what I could do is to yell, to ask for help. But nobody seems to hear me. So I was really scared because I was convinced that I was deaf. I was a ghost. I was a ghost. I could see people, but people couldn't see me and couldn't hear me. I was like in a middle world, But I was very, 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 very scared. I haven't been so scared in my life as I remember, And after a while, I hear this voice like that was guiding me. It told me, look at your palms and your hands. And so I couldn't see my hands, but I could sense them, you know. And in the middle of the palm appeared a ball. And from that ball, a kind of ray with another ball in here, another two balls here in the both hands and arms and necks, and I see all these chakras in my body, you know. All this was vibrating in high intensity, in very high intensity. I couldn't stand it. And just I could hear the voice tell me, look at the palm of your balls. Just fix your balls. It was something that like was burning me, you know, burning me deeply. And I was just, I was going to vanish because it was so intense, so painful. And miraculously, it just stopped. And I start observing how I recover my flesh. It looks like, when I talk about that, it looks like a weird stuff, but it was so real. And I recovered all my flesh, and at that moment, everything stopped. Yeah, no more sensation, just very peaceful, tranquility. I just grateful about everything, you know. Universal love, and really very pleased to come back to this body and appreciate it, you know. So that was my first encounter with this kind of experience. Yeah. So I keep on doing this experience for 3 months, and each experience was amazing about my life, about my childhood, about trauma, about even astral journeys, you know. I didn't know what to say about that, because at that moment I have no any kind of references to integrate this experience. And when the guy asked me what's going on, Dionisio, I couldn't see anything. I mean, I don't want even to talk with anyone. My problem at that moment is I start thinking I was crazy. And each time I came back to take ayahuasca, I had some reluctance to do it, because I was just observing, I'm crazy, I'm losing my mind, it takes me a few weeks to understand that, okay, I was functioning quite well. I could sleep very well. I feel the rest. And so it gave me some confidence. So I keep on doing the experience, for 3 months. And after that, I stopped. I had to come back to Europe. And coming to Europe, I started investigating about ayahuasca. But I couldn't find anything. There's no internet. And my circle of people, my friends, were not at all interested in this kind of experience, or they don't know how to say. So after 1 year, I stopped, in fact, investigating about that, because I didn't find really any kind of information or that was related to my experience. So I keep on my life. 1 year more, I found a job. Well, I was working. I was married in France. I have a house, regular life. Very nice, very, very nice. I was very pleased with my life. And suddenly I start dreaming, very lucid dreams. I never had before lucid dreams. And all these dreams were about my experience in Amazonia. I revisited some sequences of my life, of my childhood, and some transpersonal experience. And the only thing I understood after all these dreams, it was that it was not an hallucinogen, it was not a drug, that it was something beyond that, fundamental. And since that moment, I started thinking about coming back to Peru to investigate this experience. And but at the same time, my rationality, my mind say, why? You are here in France, your wife, house, car, good job, good money, spare time, good friends. You go there to Amazonia, you don't know anyone, no job, what to do there, no? So for 6 months, I start making decisions, I would say wrong decisions. I would say I quit my job with no reason. And when I came back at home and said my wife, I was so pleased, I quit my job, and suddenly I realized that what I did, it's like I had this sensation that something possessed me and make me took wrong decisions, And for 6 months, I felt really possessed by something. I missed many opportunities. I quit my job, but other guys offer me better jobs. But I missed the appointment because I confused the date. It was totally unsurreal. It was and I felt very, very bad. I felt that really I lose my mind and I was mad. But mad in normal way. Not with big crisis, no, just I was unable to function in the world, in the modern world, as I knew it. So one day, I just bought one way to Peru, and the next day I left, like running out of everyone, and that's why I'm talking about that, because you asked me in our exchange about Salon Telio. Yeah, I went to Iquitos and I met Salon Telio, no? Then somebody recommend him, and I start taking ayahuasca with him, and I was living in the street because I had no money, no job, nothing. And maybe after 1 month, somebody offered me a good job, creating a French cultural center, Alliance Française, in Iquitos, in the middle of Amazonia, nowhere. And so I start working in this French cultural center, teaching French and organization. And twice a week, ritualistically, I was taking ayahuasca with Salon Telio, and we become very, very close friends. Yeah, and so I spent 2 years with him and in Iquitos, and after that I left Iquitos to come back to Tarapoto to create Takiwasi with Jacques Mabi, was a friend of mine, and other guys here. And so I worked for Takiwasi for 8 years. And after that, I left Takiwasi and I willed my own space. Just because all over these years, experimenting with different ayahuasqueros, no? Mestizos, indigenous guys, I couldn't really find the explanation to my most intense and fundamental experiences.
Right.
Example, the first one.
Yes.
I had a difficulty to integrate this experience inside of the Amazonian map of reality, shamanic map of reality, okay? Because the shamanic Amazonian map of reality is about spirit of plants, okay? And in my experience, there was no spirit at all of plants, of any plants. So, and I had many experiences, very intense and very transformative, that really make me make a shift in my journey, in my conscious journey. And there was no spirit of the plant, specific spirit of the plant, even though I've experimented the spirit of the plants. Okay, I diet many plants for months, fasting, isolation, alone in the forest, and of course, I've been in touch with this, what's called spirit of the plants. But when I compare this experience with this, for example, my first experience with Aya, with this space timeless experience and no content, there is no comparison. I mean, this experience, spaceless, timeless, are really transformative. You won't be the same after that. You can't be the same. I mean, the world is still the same, but the way you perspective the world, you understand the world is totally different. Because this experience shows you there is nobody home. They put down any kind of filter, any kind of pattern. You become, like a child, totally open to all the opportunities. Okay? And so, comparing to the spirit of the plant, suppose experience spirit of the plant, this experience, they are still very dualistic and contaminated with many patterns, very unconscious patterns, okay? That sometimes are very nice and very useful to solve specific problems, but not the fundamental meaning about being, just be, okay? So, coming back at that moment when I left Takiwasi, the main reason was this one, because I was in disagreement in the way that the theme of Takiwasi perspective, shamanism, very close to the spirit of the plant, and I was quite distant from that. I was distant. Basically, what I found investigating the shamanic world among mestizos or indigenous guys, Shipibos, Ashaninka, Eseja, Yagua, Shayawitas, and so on, okay? Or mestizos like Solontello, a close friend, and I appreciate him a lot, who have been very close to the end of his life, okay? But the main difference between this peak experience, spaceless timeless experience, and the map of reality, shamanic map of reality was duality. Amazon shamanism is totally immersed in duality, good and bad, good and bad. And I've been dealing with that, with specific witchcraft, this kind of stuff. That's, specific fields of energy, very dualistic. Yeah. And it's interesting to go there, to experiment that, because it's in that experience you can taste the non-dual experience. Okay? And the rooted, the grounded experience. So I left Takiwasi because I wanted really to investigate beyond Amazon shamanism. And I started traveling around the world. I never left Peru before for, I would say, 10 years, I stayed here in Peru. I started giving ayahuasca after maybe 5 years, be trained by Solon and in Takiwasi with other healers. I started giving ayahuasca because it was not my interest to giving ayahuasca to people.
Yeah.
I was taking ayahuasca for myself, just investigating. You know? And so I travel outside of Peru because I had this intuition that I have to find something else, somebody else, that I couldn't find in Amazonia. Even I travel a lot to Amazonia. And so somebody found me. Some guys found me and they introduced me to other traditions. Basically, Dzogchen. Dzogchen is a Bonpo tradition, you know, previous to Buddhism, to Tibetan Buddhism. And when the guy introduced me, initiated me to Dzogchen, they gave me specific practice. All this practice, I knew about them because I experimented them in my previous Aya experience without knowing anything about that. Specific points in the body, specific tickles or bindus, like this ball in the middle of the chest, with specific colors. And when you focus your attention in that vision, it's like your attention is just sucked by that, and you go up with these big explosions, and you reach that state of non-duality. I mean, non-form. Non-duality is not non-duality, it's non-form. The causal body, non-form. Okay? And then these experiences are really fundamental. And after these initiations to Dzogchen, I've been initiated after in Mahamudra. That's very similar in Buddhism. Okay? And I met some Sufi guys too. They introduced me to Sufism. And they give me really very good insights and perceptions about understanding about my previous Aya experience again. Yeah. So I spent almost 10 years between in all these traditions. And I elaborate some collaborations with these different teachers. And we use plants, medicines from Amazonia with this practice of meditation, you know. And even I traveled to Haiti to be initiated to Voodoo. And it was really a profound experience beyond all my fears about Voodoo and this kind of stuff, you know. It depends a lot about how you are introduced to these things, you know, and how you understand beyond the dual aspect. So after that, these 10 years, no, that it took me, I used to say, it took me 10 years to go deep in the Amazonian shamanic trance. Boom. Be totally in this dualistic world. How you deal with these energies, you know, good, evil, uh, these these magic darts, you know, that are real experience, very sensitive and could be dangerous. I saw that. I experienced it myself too. Okay, I don't negate that, but what I can say, it's much more than that, much more. So after all these trainings, I elaborate what I call now integral shamanism. I mean, it's a program where I use different techniques, tools, using plants. Yeah. I have a specific, I would say, connection really with plants. I can't negate it, you know. But now my approach about plants is so much different than 30 years ago. Totally different, you know. And the way I perspective an Aya ceremony is more like a transcendental meditation. It's the fundamental thing, you know, beyond, even beyond all the forms, even beyond Icaros, Sopladas, even healing. There is nothing to do. It's just what requires from ourselves is just be receptive what's going on. And in that point, I want to stress something that I think is fundamental, no? And I know that many people who are in the Amazon shamanic world are quite reluctant towards that, you know. I don't negate the interest of plants and even the approach of dual approach with treat of the plants. For me, it was the first step that opened the other side, you know. And I am very grateful to Solonterio and other ayahuasqueros, no, that really they were able to take care of me and prevent me to do something who knows, you know, because when you lose your mind, you have to have next to you somebody to keep you more or less centered, you know. But anyway, something I want to stress is people in some way taking ayahuasca or bobinsana or chuchuasha or any kind of chirik, any kind of plant, no, that you can use, and there are many plants and very interesting, you know. There is this tendency to consider the plant as a god, you know. This the spirit of the ayahuasca, no. And so, in that approach, they forgot themselves. They forgot that what there is on the table, in one side, there is the DMT with the armine and armaline and the plant and the spirit of plant if you want, okay? And the other side, there is you with your brain. And this brain is much more complex than DMT, much more. And this brain is able to produce substances much more, I would say, complex and deeper than DMT. I can understand, I can differentiate clearly because I've been doing thousands of experience. Huh? I can differentiate clearly what's a DMT experience from a non-DMT experience. This experience about spaceless, timeless, non-form, there is no DMT there at all. And this experience of non-form, they are fundamental to your growth. If you keep on just doing and stuck the DMT experience, I used to say, nice, when you discover that, you open your mind to other levels, sure, but after years, it's boring. It's really boring. And I would say, same shit, different dinner. What does it mean? Till you got trapped in this paradigm of object, subject, object, observer, you are in a trap. You are capped. You are trapped in something. It could be very nice, but still a trap. And when you're able to plug in this non-form, there is no more object. And if you keep further, there is no more subject. Object and subject fuse and give you a sense of being alive as never before. And totally open, yeah, to what's called the eternal presence. Just be here and now, okay? Without filter your reality, okay? So That's why, personally, I still investigating, consciousness. I'm saying I'm very, I would say that level very strict to differentiate. On one side, of course, there is DMT. It's like a starter. But the other side, there is all your metabolisms. There are all your brains and consciousness. That's much beyond complex than DMT. Much, much, much more. Okay? And if you are just stuck in DMT experience, you don't go so far. Just next door. But still a jail. Still a jail. Okay? You have in some way be able to address the non-form, to start the real journey. And this non-form could be reached in many ways, with DMT or without with DMT. It struck me a lot when I was talking with a lama, a Tibetan lama, about our respective experience before I was introduced to these traditions.
Yeah.
And we share the same content. When I talk about my experience of non-form, spaceless, timeless, and the guy talk about his experience, I was say, wow, many similarities in the way, in the feeling, in the content or non-content of the experience. But what? The guy never took ayahuasca. So, what does it come from? It doesn't come from the DMT. No. If somebody was able to reach that level, maybe he was able to produce DMT, but it was beyond DMT too. Okay? And at that level, there is no need of spirit of the plant. So, this first observation put me in the rails, to really to push my investigation. Yeah, go beyond the spirit of the plant. Yeah, and to touch yourself, be able to touch yourself. So, that said, I consider ayahuasca a magnificent, beautiful tool for consciousness. Really, it's and many other plants, not just ayahuasca, psilocides, peyote. I've been trying all these experience in Mexico many times. Yeah, but what I found is always beyond the fireworks of visions or visionary experience. It's much beyond that. Okay, when you reach that state of non-form, what sometimes what's going on after that is experience about death. It's like if you keep on doing your training, yeah, sooner or later you let down the non-form or this bliss. No, you go to the hell, what's called the Vajra hell. I mean, you have really to go deep inside of these fears, fundamental fears that veil your perception about life, about death and life. And the training in itself, from my perspective, but it's just my perspective, it's not the truth, it's just my perspective, based on my experience, is about to integrate death in life. In some way, all this training about, and what the Sufi shows me very clearly, is about the transmutation from living, dying, to dying, living. You can reach eternity and plenty of consciousness beyond any identification to your body, your personal story, and so on. Okay? So, what you observe around me, now that ayahuasca and the world of plants is very known and spread all over the world, many people really use that in a therapeutic way. That's nice. It can solve very personal and deep personal problems, issues. Yeah, it works for me. I saw many times in other people, but to solve these personal problems is just the beginning. And the real therapy has to put very clear to consider death as the main medicine. In some way, you have to die to your own identification about what you think you are that you are not. And that requires, of course, a long, long training and perseverance.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing, and I think I can speak for Marja and myself, where we really resonate with everything that you've said, and in many ways, my experiences with the medicine, with the dietas, coincide with your experience, just on a shorter time scale. And because for me, it was only later that I really got to know the plant spirits. You know, I would say for the first several years, my experiences were very existential, you know, much as you described it. And I was a little bit confused. I thought, well, is this what Dieta is like? My God, this is the most profound and challenging experiences that I could have ever imagined. And no one that I spoke with and none of the books about Amazonian shamanism discussed any of this. So I was a little bit confused in the beginning. Now, when you mentioned your first very strong experience in terms of formlessness, you know, for me, it seems like you're describing probably one of the strongest, most powerful experiences, spiritual experiences, that maybe we can have as human beings. And that was one of your early experiences. Why do you think that you had such a strong experience so early on in your journey?
That's a mystery. I don't know. Because, I don't know. At that moment, I don't know. Yeah. The thing is, I come from my background don't prepare me to this kind of experience. Yeah. In my family, nobody knows what I'm doing really.
Okay.
Because even when I try to explain to them, they're scared. So I stop talking about, and I just present myself as a vegetalista, somebody who knows some remedies, and I give remedies to people to heal specific issues, physical issues, sometimes psychological issues. But I don't talk about my experience, So why this experience was, first of all, I would say, and that happened me in the after this experience when I was immersed in the Amazonian world of plants. Sometimes for months, I took ayahuasca even every day, and nothing happened. Nothing. Or just mental, issue, specific patterns all the time for months. It was just boring at the point that I was thinking, wow, after this intense experience years ago, maybe everything just is a pure illusion, It's just like nothing. And so I went through frustration. It put down all the image I have about myself as a shaman that couldn't see any kind of visions, just his own stuff and little, personal issues that don't make sense.
Yeah.
And of course, I was to row hard against my frustration and desperation. And more I took ayahuasca, it was worse. I just threw up, I was nauseous, and that's all. And not really enlightened content, to breathe. So after these periods, I came back again just to take a little bit, and boom, big experience of non-form again. It's like I observed. It's like you build something, and I observe sometimes that when people, for example, take ayahuasca, they are searching for this firework of visionary experience. That's really amazing experience, this mandala, this wow, it's really and snakes and even entities and cosmos. But what I observe is you lose a very precious fuel, and that prevents you to reach a non-form. You need to preserve your fuel, and when you take ayahuasca, you activate this precious fuel to be able to plug in this non-form. And so all this secondary experience, visionary experience, they suck your attention, and you forgot in some way the goal. Yeah. So after building this experience, I don't know how it works, because of course when I used to take ayahuasca, of course I'm attracted by this visionary experience. I was, not more. Okay. So I don't know why for these long periods I wasn't able to get visionary experience, and suddenly boom, it happened, and it makes a shift in my way of understanding the content of my experience beyond the visionary experience. Okay, so now the question is, why the experience to me? I don't know. What I know is that this experience, I'm still digesting this experience, even 30 years after. I've been revisiting this experience for periods of time to specific sequences about my life, or specific experience about the non-form, the spaceless, timeless experience, in a more deepest way, with more, I would say, at the point that now with just meditation without ayahuasca, I'm able to plug in that.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the thing, and you hear for sure that ayahuasqueros, more they become trained with ayahuasca, less they take ayahuasca.
Right.
Okay, because they're able. But I'm talking about specific ayahuasqueros, not the ayahuasqueros who go around the world. You have to go deep. Okay, these guys, they don't pretend anything. They're not going to show you, yes, I'm the most powerful. Just, okay, come in, we take together.
Yeah.
Close to close. Okay. So that's this first Aya experience was like a whole program, that just is unfolding all over all these years. During the experience, when I mentioned to you just a part of the experience, I don't mention all the details.
Right.
But many details, years after, they happen to me, to my life. I met people that I saw there. I'm living in a place that I saw there. It's like I'm revisiting my future, my past future. It doesn't make sense from that point of view. Okay? So, and in some way, it's like when I revisit some sequences, it's like I rediscover it again. It's like I forget it, and it show up in my incarnation. I recognize. It's like I dreamt that it was in this experience. It's just happening, and give me some kind of uplifted sensation that I'm at the right moment, at the right place, and I can't ask anything else. It's just perfect. It could be a difficulty, or it could be a success. It doesn't matter. But what really matters is this inner profound sensation that you are at the right moment, at the right place, and it could be facing even your death. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just about to get this profound sensation, this presence that you exist, and there is no lack of anything. And what's going on, it could be a wonderful, blissful experience, or it could be a Vajrayana experience. It doesn't matter. What just it's like you become impersonal, but at the same time you feel profoundly, and because you feel profoundly, it can transmute you. You can transcend, the darkness or the shadow that just you are facing at that moment. That's really fundamental.
Right. One question I have for you is, when we talk about non-form and kind of non-duality, it's certainly something that is talked about in spiritual circles and something very much that people strive towards and try to achieve in some way. But I guess for yourself, when you had these very spaceless, timeless experiences, and then you came back to yourself, after these experiences, did you still feel like there was a lot of healing, kind of the healing of the page by page healing of your book of life, basically, that still had to be done? So it was like, I guess I speak more from personal experience, where I would have this experience that's really beyond words, and then part of me thought, wow, I must be kind of at this another level of consciousness after this, and then for the next 1 year it would just be a lot of healing, including purging. And so, it seemed like it was one step forward and maybe 2 steps backward, something like this. I don't know if you went through this.
I understand.
So what was your experience in terms of going to such heights in some way, and then also having to do the personal work?
Okay, that's a very fundamental question, maybe the most fundamental. So my experience about all of this, up, down, yo-yo, But what I observe in these 30 years is this up-down become more bearable.
Yeah.
I can go up and down. They start to stabilize. What I mean, as anyone, and something that's to be stressed about spiritual church, it's not, I would say, villégiature in French, I would say in English, it's not a party in the way that and you because you are in a spiritual church, you deserve the best. No, it's not like that at all. Because many times you are on the spiritual quest, you deserve the worst.
Right.
And so, in my process, I've been, for example, financially, I've been very good, and a few years after, on the streets, really, a couple of times, up, down, sentimentally, same thing. I could find the the person of my partner, and we have to separate because something happened, and and to just at all levels, all my personal levels, professional, sentimental, social, financial, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, what I observe, I've developed resilience and some kind of stability. I don't freak out as I was used to freak out years ago. Yeah, when I look at my bank account, 0. Oh, okay. So I have 2 hands, 2 legs, good health. So let's go. Okay. If I need to work in any kind of things, no problems. I can do it. Yeah. For example, with this crisis, COVID, since March, my lodge, 0 clients. I have employees. Okay. So I was, how to do? Here in Peru, you don't receive any kind of help. Huh?
Yeah.
Forget it. You have to find yourself. But okay, we are still alive and quite well. So for sure, there is up and down. So if you may, coming back to this different state, yeah, non-form and non-duality, they are not the same at all. Yeah, I would say, talking about consciousness in different state, I used to take the Buddhist approach, the Buddhist map of reality. Yeah, from the Nirmanakaya, I mean this level, the gross sense, yeah, to the Svobodhikaya, okay, was the world of visionary experience. Ayahuasca is very good at that. You enter all this cosmos, visual cosmos of entities and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. The Dharmakaya is the non-form. In the Dharmakaya, there is no object, there is no subject. Okay. Still some contaminations about the subject. I mean, this tendency to see that somebody is there. Yeah, and this somebody is literally contaminated by an ego, in some way. That's why many people are looking for that all the time. Yeah, because there's still this contamination of ego contamination, and because they don't realize that it's not outside, it's inside. Yeah, and it's beyond the ego. And the non-dual, in my perspective and understanding, is really when you're able to integrate all the levels. What's called in Buddhism the Svaravikakaya. I mean, nothing to do. It's here and now. And don't expect that will be always present. You have to face pain. You have to face the death of this body. Okay? And so you have to integrate that. And you understand that it's fundamental. It's really fundamental to be trained through this incarnation. And you can understand when you are that taste, this one taste, okay? And this one taste is not indifferentiation. No, it's differentiation. I mean, you feel perfectly, you are able to discern what's really painful from what is blissful. But you are able to accept, you have the capacity to accept both, okay? And not struggle against, yeah? And your likes and dislikes become secondary. But still, you differentiate. You have the discernment about that. So, it's fundamental because the real stabilization happens at that level of the non-duality, when you are able to face the pain and the bliss. And you have to deal with that. Okay? And that at that level, that's the reality, in fact. The summum illusion is the absolute reality. It's a paradox. But how you deal with that is a position of your mind. Is a transformation. Is because you are able to transcend and at the same time included, yeah, your patterns, all your shadows, this kind of stuff, no? And in that way, in this non-dual attitude, you don't change the world. What you change, your perspective, your understanding about the world, yeah? Of course, we can talk about that, but talking doesn't go so far. You have to be incarnated and through actions. Yeah. So what amazed me is that for sure when I got specific high-end experience of this non-form, for sure I feel totally energized, and I can powerful, this kind of stuff. And I need to recognize that it lasts for a while and it slows down. And again, there is an emergence of something dark, shadow, this kind of stuff, no, that shows up. And of course, I need to deal with that. And again, to start to include and transcend. And I know you have a father. You are a father, no? You have children. Me too. Yes. And that's my master, huh? It triggers me a lot about my passions, resilience, and understanding, and get down from my, and just be at that level.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, of course, there is, but at first, this normal reality, when you have to deal with your duties, was quite opposed to my non-formal experience, and I have some reluctance to engage myself in life, But today, I observe the distance have lessened a lot, and I am more able to. I can get a non-form state through my meditation, and when suddenly it's time, I say, okay, I have an appointment, I have to talk with Michael, or I have to see the guy that he has to do some job for me, or I have to you have to pay to me something, and okay, no problem, let's do it. It's part of the game.
Right. Yeah, that's it's really amazing to hear, and also amazing to see how you've managed to integrate it into your life in such a good way. One question I have for you, and I
try, yeah.
Yeah, we all try, I suppose. One question I have for you is, when we talk about non-duality, and maybe more than non-form, non-duality, I can only speak to a few experiences that I've had, and I could say that my first encounters, it was probably one of the most difficult nights of my life up to that point, because I had taken ayahuasca and I had taken the medicine many times before, but when that experience came, I realized that was the moment where the observer within me had to be extinguished. And it was very difficult. It was like I was battling with my own mind, and my own mind was trying to prevent me from extinguishing the observer, and it went back and forth like that until finally the force just became very strong, and something happened, and then there was just presence. And it was an extremely strong evening. And afterwards, I thought, wow, that was a strong night of initiation in some way. And but yet, I realized, I don't know if I want to go through that again. It was not like that was wonderful and now all the fear is gone. Actually, Now I still feel like if that comes again, it's going to be, maybe I'll be able to handle it a little bit better, but maybe not. I don't know. So what has helped you maybe become better at this practice?
That's another good point, Michael. Really, it shows me that really you have touched some stuff important. Yeah, and I appreciate a lot your authenticity and your sharpness about your questions. Sure, yeah. So, from my point of view and through my own process, yeah. In fact, for many years, after this enlightened experience of non-form, and maybe if in this first AI experience I talk about, and at the end I say I was scared, but after the experience I keep on doing ayahuasca, and it was always blissful experience. And I couldn't understand why people were so fearful about ayahuasca. Even some ayahuasqueros, I can't understand. It's really, you don't enjoy just going this astral journey and go through cosmos, entities. It's just expansion on top of expansion. I spent hours and hours in that. Plateau. And, and the guy said, no, but but one day I touched that. This fearful experience that, as you say, the observer, okay? And so I touched that, and it was really, after a beautiful experience with, I would say, opening in Buddha minds, Christ minds, it was just, and at that moment, I don't yet read about Buddhism or the kind of stuff. It just showed up. It's like you plug in I don't know where, this collectiveness, cosmic conscience, and you just go through this beautiful and expansion experience, maybe I spent there a couple of hours, it was, I thought that everything was, I get down, I was with some friends, and we start talking, exchanging about our experience, and everyone was pleased. And suddenly, I hear a voice tell me, "It's not over. Even I can tell you, even yet start." I said, "What?" And I talked to a guy. "Do you talk to me?" He said, "No." So, oh, it's strange. I'm hearing voices, And again, after a while, the same voice told me, "You are going to die." And I say, laughing to other people, it's very strange. I hear some voices in my head tell me I'm going to die. It's a joke, because I feel totally serene and stable, and we are even drinking some water and eating something, because. And at one moment, third time, the voice told me, "It's real. You are going to die. You should to lay down the floor." And I was so convinced that I was going to die. I get up and I lie on the floor, and it stopped. Really, it stopped. At that moment, I had a big hair. All my hair was like that, shock. And I was on the floor, and I felt all the energy goes out from the top of my head and through my toes, my feet. And I start losing the sense of my body gradually. And each time I arrive at I lose the sense of my feet first. And during that experience sequence, I saw myself in a past life, in a very specific cultural past time. And I was released for a while, and again, it became very intense, and I lose the sensation of my leg. And again, another sequence about my past life, another one. And again, to my neck, I lose the sensation of my chest and my arms. And so I start really be scared because I was dying. I was dying. And it was so intense, and I was scared, very scared. But I couldn't move. And the shaman was trying to sing Iquitos, to put agua florida, camphor. It was. I told him, stop, please stop, just let me die. Okay. So the guy stopped. Fortunately, he stopped because, and again, I recognized that I was dying and I didn't want to die. And so how to do that? I said, okay, what I can do, I can't get up, I can't move. So what I can do is to send an order to my mind to sleep. And I start sleeping. I disengage from the experience, the intensity of the visionary experience. And suddenly in my sleep, I awaken. In my sleep, I start dreaming, and the dream was about my higher experience. So again, come back to the higher experience inside of the dream, yeah? And I couldn't discern about the dream and the reality. It was just, this reality is a dream, and the dream is the reality. It was so intense that suddenly I saw, like my soul, I don't know, it's like a cloud get out of my body, and I start observing the world from this cloud. I see my body on the floor, death. And from that cloud that was a conscious, I could really understand that this body is a beautiful machine, but it's not the essence. It's far from the essence. And I realized that, and I was able, first time in my life, I could see the world from another point of view, that it was not my body, not identification of my body. It creates a big hole, you know. It's like all my world about identifications in the sea, how we see the world just fall down, okay? And behind that, all some process about death. I am going to die, and I don't want to die. And so I was in some way dialoguing with myself, saying, how can be died if my body is death now? So what does it mean to die again? And it's just, I perceive like you die to your, it was a spiritual death. It was the death of the observer. This observer is still contaminated by these veils and identifications, subtle identifications to your body and your personal story, okay? And I couldn't. And I was so scared. But this fear, there is no word for this fear, because it's not sensed through the body. It was sensed through another so intense that I just faint. I faint for 3 seconds. And after 3 seconds, I come back again in my body. I recover my gross sense, and everything stopped. After this experience, it took me 6 months come back to take again ayahuasca, because I was just, wow. And since then, for maybe 10 years, I had to deal with paranoia. During all my Aya ceremonies, for maybe 2 hours, I was just plugging some paranoia experience, schizophrenia, paranoia, intense for years. That's why I traveled through Amazonia to find an ayahuasquero to heal me from this fear, from this paranoia. It was physical. My nervous system, supposedly till that moment, was very stable, yeah. But suddenly something shifted. after this death experience that I was just freaking out. Yeah. And I couldn't find anyone that was able to address that situation. That's why, in some way, it pushed me to look for somebody else beyond Amazonia. Yeah. And that's why that pushed me, this experience pushed me to be in touch with other traditions and other guys that through specific experience and manipulations, I was able to solve that. In fact, it has to do with the nervous system. And I had many experiences very clearly about, it's like the nervous system is the interface between the flesh body and these other realms. And in some way, you have to dissolve the prints in your nervous system to be able to open and be familiar to this madness.
Right.
Okay? That is not a madness. So, it's a long training to go there again, and again. Yeah? Till really you're able to relax inside of your fear. What helped me a lot to solve that technical problem was Voodoo.
Interesting.
Some initiations through Voodoo, they are very harsh. Huh? You stay for a couple of weeks, laid down on the floor, on your left side, your head on a rock, and you don't move. Wow. You don't ingest anything. You can eat, okay, but you don't they don't give you any kind of substances or plants, this kind of stuff. No. Just very zen, huh? Very zen experience. It's like, I heard, I would say in South Korea, some kind of shamanism that put you down on the floor. They cover your body and you just breathe through a tube, okay? You don't move, okay? Like a dead man. And it's like, it's the same, in some way, similar to that. In that experience, you show up all these memories beyond your personal story, okay? Beyond your personal story. It's like you understand this profound interconnectedness beyond time, okay? And so, in some way, this body has this capacity to be able to metabolize, to include and transcend these twisted patterns and understanding, false understanding about death. In some way, the programs that I put, to train people to go to this kind of, to connect to these realms, yeah? I call it integral shamanism, based in Sri Aurobindo approach and Carl Wilber, okay? And I call that death coaching. In a quite provocative way to life coaching, No. Ayahuasca, if you use ayahuasca, we know ayahuasca is left hand, is direct. And the only master is about this fear about death, this misunderstanding about death. Okay? In any kind of tradition, in Vajrayana Buddhism, in Sufism, always the same, even Voodoo, yeah? The main core is about that. To be able to unlock this fear and to transmute it, to transmute our inner ignorance, the veils, yeah? And what looks like a Vajra hell through your experience become a bliss, yeah? It's, as you mentioned in your experience, I relate to it very well, yeah? When you become closer and closer from this eye of the cyclone there that attracts you, this observer, this observing you, this eye is observing you, okay? It's a cyclone. It's an attractor. Till you are in the periphery of this cyclone, everything is okay. You can look at it, yeah? You keep, distance. And in that way, at that level, the shamanic tools are operative because you are not really dealing with the main core stuff. But more, by accident or by your karma, you're able to be close to that. You arrive at one point, you can't stand the attraction. You lose control. You have to be able to let it go and let this eye of the cyclone attract you. And this attraction is tough. It's like the Azrael kiss, the kiss of death. And this kiss is a kiss of liberation. It's a kiss of transmutation. But we can talk easily about that. But once you are there, it's not easy at all. Any kind of conversation, any kind of reading, any kind of training, it doesn't work. You're just naked. Naked to this fundamental intensity. This intensity shows up as a presence. You have never ever been so present at that moment under this fear. Okay? It's fundamental. You can't escape from that.
Yeah.
That's why I don't believe. I would like to believe these people tell me, yes, just love. It's not just like that. It's tough. I'm not a masochist at all. I try to escape from that. How many times I decide no more ayahuasca, no more specific disjunctive practice, no more. Life put me again in front of the portal in different ways. You can't escape. So after all these episodes, I arrive at this profound conviction. You know, Diony, something is fundamental. You have to understand. You can't escape this portal. What does it mean exactly? You can't escape from death, from the death of this body. So, everyone will die. What is born, it said at Advaita Vedanta, what is born will die, but what is not born can't die. So, I just realized that without ayahuasca or with ayahuasca, without practices or without practices, everyone is attracted to this portal at the end of your life, of your physical life. So it's better to do it voluntarily when you are in a good shape and good state of mind than just waiting for the last minute, thinking that Buddha or Christ is just there waiting for you. That's a dream. That's why I would say, and it's not maybe for everyone, but some people have this in Buddhism called bodhicitta, this perception and this strength to be able to train themselves to face that fundamental fear about death. And more you go there, more you understand this ignorance.
Yeah.
And if you train with ayahuasca, it's very clear. My question many times when I was facing that fear and I was attracted by this eye of the cyclone, this tornado, how when I was able to just dive in that instantly, the next second, just calm, bliss, peaceful. It's just, wow. But this second of transition is crucial. It's just, and many people, in fact, don't go there. Yeah. So my question was, how is possible 1 second, 2 seconds before that I was in a Vajrayana, I was very bad, nauseous, mad, just on the floor, dying. And 1 second after, I'm resurrected. I'm just peaceful and just open, no? So how is possible that shift can be done so quickly? It's because there is an understanding. It's about discernment, understanding. But this understanding is not with the mind. It has been done through this incarnation. Yeah? And you can project this moment to all your life. You know? It's like that's why I came back always to that what Buddhism says, no? This precious body. Okay? This precious body has this capacity to make that shift, to transmute this fundamental, that what he thinks, fear in this fundamental bliss, serenity of consciousness. That's the fundamental shift. In every Aya experience is about that. There's nothing else. It's always about that in many ways, at different levels. So, of course, the question, the 1 million question is how to make that shift. Any tradition is looking for that, to give you, the adequate practice to go there and transmute that, yeah, and really reach this liberation, this emancipation about the observer and subject out of the jail. Yeah. And of course, that taste, when you're able to live in this either cyclone, yeah, when you suddenly wake up, you have a taste of non-duality at that moment. At that moment, yeah, observer and object fuse, and the world is still functioning. That's non-duality. And you're able to be at the same time the object and the subject. There is no separation. Okay? But for the gross sense, it's always a separation. But the inner sense, this unification in you, is totally unified. And so, you can't express it. You have just to live that, So, of course, I don't pretend that I have a formula to make this fundamental transformation, because each one is the formula. Each one is the formula. Now, there are some intelligent tools and practice that give you more discernment, that sharpen your discernment to be able to understand what's going on in that millionth of second of this transmutation. Okay? It's about discernment, understanding. But of course, if your attention is sucked by the visionary experience about this multifacial worlds in cosmos, you miss the portal. You miss this interstice, this 1 second that you need all your attention. That's why interesting about fear. When you start feeling fear fundamentally, you forget everything around you. You just, It's because this intensity, you can stand it, because you are not used to that. Our gross sense are all the time there. They are not focused. When I'm able to focus that and able to go to make that shift, something in your nervous system happen. Check. You are able to stand the intensity. When you come back again, something become in autopilot. Till the next step, you need to shift something else.
Right.
Till the point where just you are able to relax in this profound intensity. The key in some way, without being the key, but It's the goal is about to be able to relax inside of the fear. And for that, you have to be totally identified to the fear. You can't escape from the fear.
Right.
So I use that perspective because it changed all the perspective about using ayahuasca and aya ceremony. For example, what you observe in a modern world, yeah, even here in Tarapoto, yeah, when tourists and guys, or even when there's a ceremony, okay, the ayahuasca is there, singing, blah blah blah. When somebody starts losing control, what is going to do? He's going to try to calm the guy, to let it down, to disengage from that. Big error from my point of view. No, personally, I push the guy to go there because that's the opportunity. That's the opportunity. That's why, since years ago, I stopped in some way receiving groups. I'm more now working with personal clients because I can't stand just make the show. It's very fundamental. When you engage yourself in this territory, it's a dangerous territory. Okay, you engage your time, your money, your energy, and your life. So you can't miss just the opportunity. When this opportunity show up, you have to be really in tune and be able to do your best to stand that and not escape from that. And do your best, huh? That's all you can do. Now, something that just struck my mind when I gave ayahuasca the first time to a Tibetan lama. So I was very curious to know how he was reacting. And I know I gave him a high doses with very concentrated ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I took myself too. Wow, I really impressed by the mastering of the experience by this guy. And asked me second cup.
Wow.
I gave him second cup, full cup.
Uh-huh.
And the guy, wow, 5, 6, 8 hours, no moving. Just at the end of the experience, I told him, how was? He told me, very good. And he said, but it's for high practitioners. I'm totally agree with him. It's for high practitioners. So in some way, this guy showed me the best ayahuasca I met was him. Really.
Right.
Was able to stand so high level of experience. So my conclusion about that is how we can do that. Just because these guys have been trained very soon in breathing. The real Icaro, the real thread that can help you to manage this intense fear is about breathe. Is about really be able to be trained in the pranayama and be able to go beyond the gross breath and be able to be in touch what's called the inner winds inside of you. And you arrive at one point that you don't breathe, that something is breathing you. It's because you have reached that point in your practice that something is breathing you, that when you are facing this eye of the cyclone, this attractor, you are able to let it go because you have been trained to let you go to that something is breathing you, there's something attracting you, and so you go through that without losing your consciousness. That's the main thing. Yeah? It's about to be able to go through all the channel, this attractor, and dive in it without losing your consciousness that I miss when I went through this death experience,
Right.
and I faint, and I lose 3 seconds of my consciousness at that moment, because I was unable to sustain the intensity, the fear.
It's an amazing story. And actually, I'm getting scared just listening to it.
I'm starting to feel so.
Or nervous, at least.
But I'm also like, let's go try now.
I can understand, Michael, but you know, when I use ayahuasca, I'm going to take ayahuasca. My worst moment is before taking ayahuasca, because my body knows that it's not a cup of tea, it's not a Coca-Cola, and you never know. Okay, and you are triggered. You can be triggered in a very unknown fears and sensation and fears, you know. But with time and training, something stabilizing inside of you, really. It's like more you go deep in this process, more you can get access to new tools. I mean, you are preparing your body, okay? There is an accumulation of, you build something, it has to do with your nervous system. And to give you an example, to illustrate that, years ago when I had to deal with this paranoia, I was used to take ayahuasca in the jungle, and I walked for kilometers because my paranoia and my intensity was so strong that I couldn't stand it, just sit down or lay down on the floor. I had to walk. Even I dive in rivers, I was mad. Walking. It was dangerous because in the pristine forest, there are snakes everywhere, you know. But fortunately, nothing happened. I was always able to come back in the morning. I was in a bad state, you know. Physically, I was totally covered by mud because I had to deal with this intensity. So today, when I experiment, when it goes in that way, my body is just lay down on the floor, move. My nervous system is totally stabilized, and I have a clarity in my consciousness. And of course, because I've been trained to this specific breathing, you know, be able to breathe and let you breathe by your breath, yeah? And to engage yourself in this channel, in these tunnels, and be let go through this attractor. And you reach this stability, just, there is no form, in fact. There's no form. And the non-form, when you are not familiar with that, we compare it to death, the unknown. Because we can't conceive how it's possible to be conscious without form or without object and subject.
Yeah.
We don't know. And we designate that as death. And the end of the end. And it's not like that. It's not like that. It's about, in some way, all this process is about that each one realize his own conviction about these fields, this primitive consciousness. You can, of course, exchange, and it's good, yeah? Personally, some of my mentors helped me a lot, you know, just by their presence and some advice and observing how they deal with these situations. Helped me a lot, gave me this confidence yeah, to be able to do it by myself, just to go it, yeah. And in some way, this kind of things is not about to force yourself. It's more about to be more, receptive to your intuition. Yeah. Personally, my most, I would say, extreme experience or practice through diets, isolations, privation, this kind of stuff, was after intuitions or dreams. Okay? Without this kind of intuition, I wouldn't be able to stand the experience in itself. What I mean by that, I mean, it's not by your mind you can reach this kind of experience. You have to be more receptive, and generally it's like an objective experience through a dream or a profound intuition that push you to do that in that way.
Right. Well, that was amazing, both talk about your own experiences and so helpful for our journeys as well. So I very much appreciate it. I think we're coming up on a few minutes before our scheduled in time. So I know you probably have things to do in Tarapoto, but again, it's thank you so much. I hope we have a chance to visit you in Tarapoto, especially when the travel opens up again. It would be an honor to meet you, and it would be wonderful to speak in more detail.
Michael, thank you very much for the interview and for the sharing. And really I appreciate, because it's not easy to share about that. Sometimes I try to. It's not because I want to impose anything. I want just, when people ask me about these fields and shamanism, and with all the respect I had with curanderos and ayahuasqueros, and I've been living with them for years here, And now, I'm disengaged a little bit because I am in my own search. But when people ask me, what do you think about this? No? And I share, not to impose any kind of specific truth, but just I want to share some approach. And personally, when I want to share that, it's because I found myself years ago, I would like that somebody just induce me or give me some information and some framework, be able to understand and integrate, the inner process of consciousness,
Right.
of awakening of your consciousness, instead of just keeping always the same narrative that the spirit of plant is going to teach you, is putting you in a very uncomfortable way, because it works for a while, but arriving to some point, you understand that you can't relate in something external to you, because it is inside of you in some way. Okay? It's you. It's not the higher. It's your own consciousness, your own potential that's just unfolding. Okay? And you can't just relate for this non-form and non-dual experience to relate the spirit of the plant that's in a dualistic approach.
Yeah.
It creates an opposition. And I saw so many people struggling with that, but they are so rooted in their, I would say, exotic and shamanic approach, that they couldn't let it go and understand that very well. It took me 10 years to go deep inside of that. It took me 10 years more to disengage from that. It took me 10 years more to elaborate my own system, okay, that works for me. And in fact, it's what any kind of real ayahuasquero do. They of course, they went, I am talking about serious guys, not the guys who just become ayahuasquero because ding, 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 money. No, it's not that. And you don't find these guys in the centers at all. at all. Just to give you a little example, one time I went to see the Chayahuitas, these indigenous guys at 2 days walking from here to going to Yurimago and so on, Palsa Puerto. Anyway, I went to a little village. The guy don't speak Spanish. I had a guide with me, a translator, because you can't go there just by yourself. You have somebody to ask. And anyway, so I wanted to experience with them. So I went to see the shaman of the village, the guy, the ayahuasquero. We cooked the ayahuasca because I want to see what's going on the brew. Okay? I want just datura. I don't want datura. If I took so much datura in the past, but no, I want just chacruna and the ayahuasca. We cook, and at night we drink. First time in my life that somebody give me ayahuasca, invite me ayahuasca, and told me, now you go to your hut and stay in his house. So I go by myself the hut, and it was so strong, and I was not so experimented than now. Okay, yeah, it was so strong. And I was with a friend of mine. It was his first high experience, and the guy was on the floor.
Yeah.
And many times we get, Diony, help me. I couldn't help me. I was on the floor too. I was just out. Okay.
Yeah.
I spent all the night. It was really drastic, huh? Purging. A mess. So just in the morning, at dawn, you just listen. I could really come back, My friend was just on the. It was a disaster, it was very bad for him, So we rest a while, and after that, I went to see the guy, the curandero, no. With my guide, no? And I just asked him to tell him, why give me so strong brew and give me a load? And so the guy answered me, gringo, the ayahuasca, the spirit of the plant, don't need me to show you what you have to look at. Well, I didn't appreciate so much this answer, because it's like he wanted just know it's not my responsibility. So I was a little angry against him, but I left the village because no problem, huh? But it took me a while, years and years, to understand that he was right. He gave me a great lesson to let me by myself facing my own devils and not just expecting that somebody else is going to do that for you.
Right.
Okay? Maybe it was a little tough and rough, no? Westerners' minds. But at the end of the end, it's about that. We need to face that portal that we mentioned, this fundamental fear. Okay? So, of course, and I want to thank you for listening to what I'm mentioning now, because in many occasions when I try to explain that to other people, just people shut down. And they consider that I'm an heretic. I'm a guy that don't appreciate, I'm not reconnaissance, or I'm not grateful to the healers and ayahuasqueros and so on and so on. You say, you misunderstand what I'm trying to explain to you. Yeah, I don't negate the value of that knowledge, but you have to consider that I rarely found some ayahuasqueros with whom I can talk about non-duality. Mm-hmm. They don't know that. Right. They don't know.